I was at a pharmacy about a week ago just to get something simple. I got what I wanted, but while I was waiting for my change, someone came to ask for a particular drug, and when they mentioned the amount, I was like, are you joking with him? And then the lady said, I'm not joking. It's because the cost of these drugs have increased because of the exchange rate.
Yeah.
And then she went on to mention some of the drugs. A lot of them were antibiotics. And when she was telling me the amount, I was so shocked and I began to wonder. So when people who are in dire need of these drugs need them and can't afford them, what then happens? So it brings us to the issue of the availability of some drugs or the local production of some of these key drugs. But these questions will be asking Kenneth Victor's David, the founder, Pharmafluence Education Advanced Network, who is joining us virtually this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are you doing?
I am fine, and Femi is fine as well. Thank you for joining us on Early Exchange. All right, we're talking about the role of research for economic growth. Looking at the pharmaceutical sector, what's the level of research ongoing in that sector in Nigeria?
All right, All right. So thank you very much for that wonderful question. I actually enjoyed the experience you shared regarding your recent experience at the pharmacy. Now, I am also shocked about the rate at which things are extremely expensive right now. I could remember there was an antibiotic that used to cost about 1,500 naira, but now it's about 18,000 naira. And there's one that is about, it used to be 5,000, but now it's about 28,000 naira, and that's really on the high side. So research and development is something that's extremely important, and we'll be looking at ways of improving the local production of pharmaceuticals so that they will be easily accessible to people at an affordable prices. So currently in Nigeria, there are lots of research ongoing, both in the academia, in research institutes like NIPRI, that's National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development, some pharmaceutical companies, as well as other private organizations. So a lot of research have been conducted at the moment.
All right. The pharmaceutical industry in Nigeria is estimated to be worth about $1.5 billion. I would like you to talk to us how far this industry has gone when it comes to local production. We used to have a situation where some of these raw materials are being imported, even if that is still the situation now. But talk to us. How far has this industry gone when it comes to local production of drugs and some of these pharmaceutical products?
All right. Thank you very much for that wonderful question. Now, let me just make emphasis on like some happenings in recent times. We can see that Nigeria has a lot of specialists. Nigeria has a lot of specialists, has a lot of people that are skilled in the development of most of these medications, although there are lots of challenges. And in Nigeria alone, we have over 120 manufacturers of drugs and about 500 importers of pharmaceutical products as well. And in 2017, there was a study carried out which estimated that about $20.7 billion is being targeted at the African market. Like I made mention, and this an indigenous pharmaceutical company which was instituted last year with Professor Emeje as director general, are really doing a wonderful work. I could remember there was a time that NIPRI had a lot of formulation. I think they had NIPRI immune, which is a locally formulated medication that has the tendency of improving the immune system of people. And there are others for anti-malarials like Chadoma. They are also very good. And we have like others as well. But then there are really, really not many. There are really, really not many. If you compare the number of local and the market over the locally.
Oh my.
Oh. We're having a glitch there, and so it's a challenge. Continue the conversation with Beatrice David, but we'll do that as long as that glitch is solved. Internet fluctuations. So
He was actually trying to address the issue of local production of drugs, how far the pharmaceutical industry has gone. Like I was saying earlier, production in Nigeria now is challenging, given the present economic realities as a businessman. And even for these producers of these drugs, they are not left out. For instance, you need to buy these raw materials. They are not readily available here. Some of them are to be imported because they are not things you can just buy on the shelf like that. And so to the cost of shipping these things is not going to be a tea party. Given the present realities, you have to source for finance. And that's why some of these local drug manufacturers, what they do is they partner with multinationals who provide these raw materials for them, and they produce locally. They have this arrangement, this partnership, depending on the level of MOU or the contract within the two parties. But by and large, you see some of these multinationals coming into that space to help with the funding, providing the logistics for the local production. Because you must agree with me, the more we have of local production of these materials, the better for us. It makes them readily available, it makes them cheaper. But to sustain production is a challenge given the present reality, and then the money you're supposed to spend on paying workers' salaries, making life better for your workers, you're spending it more in sustaining operations, in generating power. Look at what is happening now with the price of fuel now, the price of diesel now. You're going to spend more as a manufacturer. What it means is the money that you ought to naturally or devote to running your factory or operations, you're not spending more on sourcing for energy.
Yeah,
Atlanta, I
good to
guess,
know.
is back. So let's engage him.
Yeah,
Glad
good to
to
know.
have you join us once again,
Yeah.
Kenneth.
So sorry, I had a network issue earlier.
Yeah, we understand it's not within your control. So let's go back to my earlier question. With the question I asked was for you to talk about how that industry is faring when it comes to local production of drugs and pharmaceutical products. And you were talking about some of the challenges and the plight of these drug manufacturers. Please go ahead with your thoughts.
All right, so I don't know exactly how it stopped, but then let me rephrase. All right, so there are some pharmaceutical
All right, feel
industries in
free, go ahead.
Nigeria who are all right, who are doing an exceptionally great work, but the main challenge that these institutions are having are actually centered around the issues of funding and the current economic plight of the nation. Now, it has been estimated that the cost of manufacture of most of these medications, even locally, is extremely expensive. Yeah, I just learned that a multinational pharmaceutical company who was actually based in Nigeria some time ago, not now, they had to like fold up and stop production in Nigeria because of the current realities like unstable supply and the hike in the price of PMS and diesel. So all of these things help in making it difficult and increasing the cost of locally manufactured medication, we also have some issues with regulatory agencies. Now, in as much as Nigerian regulatory agencies are doing an amazing work, there are a lot of challenges when it comes to this. A lot of times you discover that you you discover that medications that are not even supposed to pass any of those tests, you see them in the market. When they are come about, and who are the people that give approval for all of this? So regulatory agencies are also contributing to the downsides recorded. We also have inadequate infrastructural um, provisions. Now, just like we made mention of power issues, and also issues when it comes to to electricity. We also have issues when it comes to like human development. There are some requisite skills that are actually desirable for this research to be carried out. But then there's no funding for researchers to be trained in those aspects. Now, it will interest you to know that research equipment is a very, very important thing. It's the life wire of any pharmaceutical industry. And it usually takes years. In fact, for a new drug to be produced, it usually takes about an average of 20 years, and it takes not less than $20 billion for a single medication to be produced. So it's a lot of money. And in Nigeria, the health sector is poorly funded, and these are some of the issues that are affecting the availability of locally manufactured medicines.
All right, before we look at why we have those issues, because you've mentioned a lot of issues, you've talked about the duration of time that it takes to develop a new drug, 20 years, that's 2 decades, a very long time. But let's look at the potency of the drugs that are being manufactured in Nigeria. Where you have a particular drug that treats an ailment, and you have foreign brands too, and someone gets to the drugstore, sometimes, especially when the money is available, the request is first for the foreign brand before the local brand. And even when they are offered the local brand, they tell you, oh, no, because there's a disbelief in the potency of that drug. Why do we have a situation like that? Does it have to do with a mindset, or it's a real factor or a real issue?
All right, so thank you very much for that wonderful question. I was actually privileged to work at a multinational pharmaceutical company in the UK, and I've also seen how things are done in Nigeria. So I actually know the difference. I've actually tested both scenarios. I can tell you for sure that we have pharmaceutical industries in Nigeria who are actually doing a lot of work and amazing work. That the formulations are extremely good. But we also have industries in Nigeria whose formulations are actually nothing to write home about. So I won't actually say it is as a result of mindset. Yeah, mindset is there, but then it's actually one of the realities. I know that like foreign companies now even foreign drugs, like foreign medications, it's not from all companies that are of high reputation. We have to foreign countries that have poorly formulated medications, and most of the medications are not effective. That's because of a lot of issues with the regulatory system. So the issue of efficacy of locally manufactured medication against foreign or imported medication is a thing of personal interest. So now take for instance, we have, I don't want to mention the name of any pharmaceutical company, but we have some pharmaceutical companies here in Nigeria that are doing an amazing work, and most of their formulations are of high standard. I was opportune to be part of a research team that assesses the efficacy of most of these medications here at Kaduna State University. And I can see that the bioequivalent of these locally manufactured medications are actually high as compared to like even foreign, they, as, as compared to their foreign counterparts. All right, but then on an average, formulations or medicines that are imported from high-income companies, most of the time, they have a very high standard as compared to some of the locally manufactured medicines in Nigeria.
I would like to find out from you, and I would like you to do more, analysis, and also give us, insight into the kind of research you think should be prioritized around this time. Looking at the peculiarity of our X sectors, the health issues, the ailments peculiar to this environment. What kind of research do you think should take place at this time, if you're in position to suggest?
All right, so if I'm in a position to suggest, I think more research should be carried out on infectious diseases. Infectious diseases are actually diseases that are caused by microorganisms or infection. Yeah, by microorganisms. So if you observe, most of the death recorded in Nigeria as a result of infectious diseases. In malaria, you see typhoid fever, you see a lot of other infectious diseases. And so if a lot of research is if a lot of funds is invested in research that targets infectious diseases, it will go a long way in reducing the mortality rate of Nigeria and even increasing the life expectancy of Nigerians. And it is not only about the medication. We also have to look at research that targets preventions as well, because it's actually cheaper to prevent than to cure. So prevention is very, very important. So research, so funds should be invested in research that helps in prevention of infectious diseases, as well as in discovering medications that would help in its management. Now we have a lot of herbal medications. We have a lot of trees that are of medicinal importance. A lot of them, like this dogoyaro, neem tree, as a director indica, it has a lot of medicinal purposes. So if only if only the different isolates would be like isolated and then develop, you have a lot of locally manufactured medications. And that's actually because now that most of the time, if like in rural areas, you discover that they don't have access to quality like healthcare system. They don't have the luxury of obtaining conventional orthodox medications. But then many of them get sick. They look for plants, and they discover that the plants are very, very effective in the management of these minor diseases. So the money should be invested, and time should also be invested in research that targets infectious diseases. In developed countries, they actually target, they actually invest in research works that has to do with pharmacogenomics. Now, pharmacogenomics is a branch of science that deals with the discovery of the discovery of the genetic profile of an individual, and then targeting or formulating or giving a medication that would have minimal side effects on that individual with an increased efficacy. So the major research that should be conducted in Nigeria should be one that targets infectious diseases.
Okay, I was going to ask you about access to raw materials, because before you joined, Femi was talking about how difficult it is for the pharmaceutical industry to get raw materials because they import some of them. But you talked about the availability of some of these materials being found locally. It takes research to identify them and to explore their use. So let's talk about the research, quality research. What are some of the challenges in having quality research of not just new drugs, but even in the materials that we find around us? What are some of the barriers?
All right. So the major one is knowledge. Knowledge. Now, knowledge in the sense that what you do not know, you can actually do nothing about it. So knowledge is one very, very key thing that is hindering the exploration of these things. And in as much as we have a number of experts in Nigeria that are into these herbal medications and formulation of this, not a lot of them. This knowledge has not been widely available to people in settings. I know that apart from people in the pharmaceutical sector and in other departments such as botany and also herbal medicine, pharmacognosy, not a lot of people are actually aware of these things. Then the number two thing also is like funding. So even if people that have this knowledge want to carry out a study, there is no enough funding to carry out some of this work. I think I could remember I was sharing with a colleague of mine from time back who works with a pharmaceutical industry research institute in Nigeria, and he was just telling me the amount of funding they get. It's nothing to write home about. And that funding will not even be sufficient to carry out a study, a good research in a university, not to talk of a research institution. So funding is one major thing as well. So I'm actually calling on the government and other private sectors that are in a position to actually help in promoting and funding of pharmaceutical research, because we have a lot of materials on ground. Again, they cannot be, like, most of them are not like they are not harnessed. Then we also have what we call we also have issues that surround the use of materials, like infrastructure. We may have this, but then there might not be sufficient equipment to carry out this study. I could remember that during my master's program, I did a study on calcium signaling, and the equipment that I used there, I've never seen it. So I was discussing with other academics in Nigeria, and they said it is only available in only one institution in Nigeria. So availability of resources and equipment is also one of the issues. And all of these things can be solved if there is proper funding and proper funding and regulations of these areas.
All right. Irrespective of the challenges, how can research be tailored towards providing homegrown solutions? You know, earlier you talked about the use of plants, the use of herbs and all that. How can research take advantage of these local raw materials to provide homegrown solutions, the use of herbs and all that? And how do you harmonize that with the use of orthodox drugs?
All right. So I advise that research should not be left only for pharmaceutical industries alone. In our institutions like the universities, polytechnics, and other areas, I advise that research should be inculcated in the minds of the students at a very early age. not only when they're in their final level, that they'll now be told that, okay, choose a topic and come up with the chapter 1 to 3 or chapter 1 to 4 and all. No, it should start early. So I feel if we are able to train like researchers, train students, and like ignites the passion for research in their hearts at a very young age, it helps them to think critically. It also helps them to look for solutions, to be problem solvers and not people that would just complain about the system without having the requisite knowledge and skills to provide a solution. So research should be inculcated in the minds of students at a very young age. Then aside that, if these institutions are carrying out like their research, no matter how little it may look, it is actually significant. Most of these research that have been conducted, it is not only based on what they observe. Most times they have to carry out what we call literature review, so actually review what other people have done in other settings to be able to know what are the potentials of of these medications or of these plants. So if we can be carrying out research, not only leaving it to pharmaceutical industries, but in our own little way as students, as early career researchers, as academics, if we can be carrying out our own research in our own little way and just publishing it and even publishing it, it's actually go a long way in like helping. Now you never can tell, you never can tell. Even this COVID-19 vaccine, when it came forth, it's not as if like nothing is known about the COVID virus. Now a lot of studies have been conducted in the past about coronaviruses. So now when we now have an outbreak of this, now researchers have to go back. What is known about this topic? What is known? What is known? What's the gap? What do we need to work on to make it better? So that's what happens. So they have to go back to look at previous studies that were conducted. I actually believe that some of the researchers, some of the people that conducted these studies, they didn't know that this study would actually go a long way in solving problems. But then in their own little way, they did something, and when the time was right, it made the work of researchers easier. It made it easier. So we need to start carrying out research works, not only leaving it to pharmaceutical industries, but in our own little way, to start doing something and also sharing this knowledge with other people out there.
All right, finally, let me ask, who's to champion the cause of a research? Because we've talked about having synergy between the academia and the pharmaceutical industry in the area of research. And earlier while you were speaking, you talked about a new drug taking about 20 years to develop. But you also alluded to the fact that research can be proactive before an epidemic or an illness breaks out. So who's to champion the cause of a research in a particular area? Is it the academia? Is it government agencies or those in the pharmaceutical industry? Is there a place for collaboration, all of this?
Yes. Now, look, one of the parameters of this of identifying quality of research is by the number of collaborators. If you have people from like different sectors coming together to like share or say a thing or two about a particular topic based on their level of expertise, it helps to make a research work like solid. So the people that to champion the cause of research are researchers, regardless of where you are, whether in the academia, in a private institute, or in a pharmaceutical company. You need to, like, researchers are the main thing. Researchers are the main champions, and this thing can help. And the reason why collaboration is important is actually because it helps to make everything easier. Now you cannot say, okay, we don't need the government's approval, we just do our research work and then that is it. No, we need all of these people. We need researchers in the academia, we need researchers in pharmaceutical industry, we need people from government and other places to actually come together and help in development and the advancements of research. And that's because even in I remember I said it takes about 20 years for a new drug to be produced. And now within the 20 years, what are done? Number one, there has to be like discovery of drugs. Now, new medications have to be discovered. Apart from that, it has to be clinical laboratory studies have to be carried out. If now we now discover that now this new medication or this agent has efficacy against particular disease, or it has or it's safe, we can now move it to
All right, Kenneth,
trials.
we need to wrap up the conversation now. All right, we actually want to thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, for spending time with us on Any Extinct this morning. You've actually talked extensively on the plight of local drug manufacturers and what the industry looks like at this moment. So we want to thank you for sharing your thoughts on Early Exchange with us this morning.
That thank you very much for the platform.